August 6, 1945, a date forever seared into the memory of humanity. Above the skies of Hiroshima, Japan, a single bomb, nicknamed Little Boy, was released. In a blinding flash, it detonated, unleashing a power never before seen on Earth. The world was irrevocably changed, and the atomic age had begun. But how do we get to this point? What chain of events led to the creation and use of the most devastating weapon ever devised? Our story begins not in the chaos of battle, but in the quiet realm of scientific theory. During the late 1930s, as the world teetered on the brink of war, physicists in Europe made a groundbreaking discovery: nuclear fission. The idea that splitting an atom could release an immense amount of energy was no longer just a theory, it was a terrifying possibility. And in Nazi Germany, some of the world's leading scientists were rumored to be exploring its military potential. This news sent a wave of alarm through the scientific community. In 1939, the brilliant Albert Einstein, a refugee from Nazi persecution, co-signed a letter to U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt. The letter was a stark warning: Germany could be developing an atomic bomb, a weapon of unimaginable power. If the Nazis succeeded first, the consequences for the free world would be catastrophic. Roosevelt took the warning seriously. The response was the creation of one of the most secret and ambitious undertakings in history, the Manhattan Project. This was not just a small research group. It was a colossal industrial and scientific enterprise. Over its course, the project would employ more than 130,000 people, from Nobel laureates to factory workers, and its cost would balloon to nearly $2 billion, a staggering sum at the time, equivalent to over $30 billion today. Massive clandestine cities sprung up in remote locations like Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and Los Alamos, New Mexico. Thousands of people worked on mysterious tasks, many having no idea what their true purpose was. They were all cogs in a giant machine, racing against a shadowy enemy to build a superweapon. The project's director, General Leslie Groves, and its scientific head, J. Robert Oppenheimer, led this monumental effort, pushing the boundaries of science and engineering under immense pressure. Then, on December 7, 1941, the war took a dramatic turn for the United States. The surprise attack on Pearl Harbor by Japan thrust the nation headfirst into World War II. The urgency of the Manhattan Project intensified. What was once a race against Germany now included a new dimension: defeating the Axis powers on all fronts. The war in the Pacific was brutal, characterized by fierce fighting and heavy casualties. As the conflict dragged on, American military planners grew increasingly worried about the potential cost of a full-scale invasion of Japan, which they estimated could result in millions of casualties on both sides. By mid-1945, Germany had surrendered, but the war in the Pacific raged on. The Manhattan Project, however, had reached its goal. On July 16, 1945, in the desert of New Mexico, the first atomic bomb was successfully tested. The Trinity test unleashed a power that shocked even its creators. Oppenheimer famously recalled a line from Hindu scripture: "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." The weapon was ready. The question now was not if it could be used, but if it should be used. The decision fell to President Harry Truman, who had taken office after Roosevelt's death. He and his advisors weighed their options. A list of potential Japanese cities was drawn up. The final choice, Hiroshima, was not primarily a military target in the traditional sense. It was a major urban center that had been largely untouched by conventional bombing. The chilling logic was to demonstrate the bomb's full, horrific power to the Japanese leadership and the world, hoping it would force an immediate surrender and avoid a bloody land invasion. And so, on that fateful August morning, the Enola Gay, a B-29 bomber, flew over Hiroshima and released Little Boy. The bomb exploded mid-air, creating a fireball hotter than the surface of the sun. The blast wave and subsequent firestorm obliterated the city center. In an instant, an estimated 70,000 to 100,000 people were killed. Buildings were flattened, and a deadly wave of radiation spread outwards. The survivors, horribly burned and irradiated, would face a lifetime of suffering from injuries and illnesses. The world had witnessed the dawn of nuclear warfare. Despite the unimaginable destruction, Japan did not surrender immediately. The United States had prepared a second bomb, a different design called Fat Man. 3 days later, on August 9th, it was dropped on the city of Nagasaki. The complex terrain of the city limited the blast's range, but the devastation was still immense. Over 80,000 more people lost their lives. Faced with the threat of further atomic attacks and a Soviet invasion from the north, Emperor Hirohito finally intervened. On August 15th, Japan announced its unconditional surrender, officially ending World War II. The use of the atomic bombs brought the war to a swift conclusion, but it opened a Pandora's box of new global anxieties. The world was plunged into the Cold War, a tense standoff between two new superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, which soon developed its own nuclear arsenal. This ushered in an era defined by the terrifying concept of mutually assured destruction, or MAD. The idea was simple and horrifying. A nuclear attack by one side would be met with overwhelming retaliation from the other, resulting in the annihilation of both. This balance of terror, paradoxically, created a fragile and terrifying kind of peace between the major powers. The fear of nuclear Armageddon became a permanent fixture of modern life. To this day, the decision to drop the bombs remains one of the most debated topics in history. Supporters argue it was a military necessity that saved more lives than it took by preventing a prolonged invasion of Japan. They point to the fanaticism of the Japanese military and the astronomical casualty estimates for such an operation. From this perspective, the bombs were the lesser of two evils. However, critics condemn the act as a grave moral failing, an unnecessary attack on civilian populations. They argue that Japan was already on the verge of surrender, crippled by naval blockades and conventional bombing. They question whether a demonstration of the bomb on an unpopulated area could have achieved the same result, without the immense loss of civilian life. Was it a final act of war, or the first act of the Cold War a message to the Soviet Union? The legacy of Hiroshima and Nagasaki is complex and deeply unsettling. It's a story of scientific genius and human fallibility, of geopolitical strategy and immense human suffering. The mushroom clouds that rose over those cities cast a long shadow over the 20th century and continue to loom over us today. They serve as a permanent, chilling reminder of our capacity for self-destruction and the profound responsibility that comes with wielding the power of the atom. The story of Little Boy is not just a chapter in a history book. It's a cautionary tale for all of humanity, a question we must continue to ask ourselves. How do we ensure such a weapon is never used again? Thank you for watching. If you found this video insightful, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the events that shaped our world. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update.